have some fun. Let's do it.
Hi everyone and welcome to the Makers podcast. Conversations about creative living and entrepreneurship in the arts. This is a short video with a few clips from the conversation I have had with Saskia Maas and Andrew Moskos, two of the founders of the Boom Chicago Improv Comedy Club in Amsterdam. As you may have noticed, this episode is totally in English, and you can check out the complete conversation on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and all the other podcast apps. Enjoy!
The core of what we do is this idea of yes and. Of course, if you improvise, you have to accept that whatever your partner on stage says is the truth.
Yeah.
And from there you build further. So we always say love an idea for a minute. And that's exactly what Dutch people, or in this particular case, the tourist office didn't do. They didn't love the idea even for a minute. They thought, no, let's not.
They didn't even try. They just...
Yeah.
Well, you know, over the years, one of the things I thought is that Dutch folks have a hard time seeing the future. They're very into what they can see right then, but they can't kind of imagine. So like recently when coffee started, coming to go, coffee in a beker op straat? Nee, nooit lukken. And of course now everyone, coffee in a cup is normal, just like it was, in other places. Or the North-South line, like, until it opened, so many Dutch people just couldn't imagine, a spine of transit through the city. And then once it opened, people were like, oh, it's beautiful. Oh, I get it. Oh, Station Zuid is going to be the new international train destination. But until it happens, sometimes people can't kind of envision it. Everyone has that first improvisation show experience where you go, wow, it's fast.
People couldn't believe that it wasn't tricked. That they thought literally in the beginning that we had people in the audience that were part of our ensemble shouting out things. And then
we would pretend to improvise.
And then we would pretend to improvise. But of course, and then I always said, like, well, try it yourself. Shout out a suggestion and then you'll see that it is really
also, there's two reasons why that's not true. One, we would never pay someone to take up a seat that someone else could sit in to shout out fake suggestions. And plus the fun is, and you can watch it on stage, is we make ourselves laugh and you can see when it's spontaneous, and that obviously it would be boring to fake improvise. I mean, it would just be no fun. And plus you'd come 2 days and go, wait, this is the same show as yesterday. And those 6 people shouted things out. If people shout out the same things, we do the opposite. Then we use that as a suggestion. So people shout out toilet a lot as a location. It's a fine location, but we get it all the time. So then we say, oh, we're looking for a location, like a toilet. So then
they won't say that.
Yeah, and then they won't say it. And then we get castle. Oh, got castle. Great. Let's go do a scene in a castle. And then you can almost see the actors going, okay, castle, good suggestion.
Nice challenge.
And then, we go, nicely done. And then they feel good about it too. So we want good and different suggestions as well. So we try to steer it that way. Although with a musician who can jump into things, with a technician who's got the internet. So sometimes people are like, well, how'd you get a picture of a castle? And he's playing castle music, well, that's just what we do.
That's also part of it.
That's all part of it. And it's all those people coming together. And that is the magic of an improv show.
So at the beginning, when you started, of course, Saskia, you were Dutch, but Andrew, you're American. But now it's 27 years later and you can call yourself Dutch as well.
Yes.
So how has your content of what you are making
it's matured for sure. Yeah. I mean, the first year, it was about the visitor's experience in Amsterdam. Guys got high in a scene and had a surreal sort of stoner freak out, and the Heineken brewery was a location for one scene because that was what we were about then. We had that experience. I mean, we weren't here for 3 days. We were here for a summer, but okay, that was our first experiences in Amsterdam. As we get older and as I learn Dutch and I read the paper and I go see shows myself and I'm a part of Dutch society, well then what I think about is much more. So we're much more focused on sort of the technology. We did a show about artificial intelligence where we programmed a robot to improvise with us on stage.
But also our political show about Trump is to explain to a Dutch audience this crazy American politics.
Our primary audience, it's a show for Dutch people where visitors are welcome, and not a show for tourists where Dutch people are welcome, and that's an important distinction. Yeah. But we also had a really popular show called The 7 Deadly Dutch Sins, where we found 7 things that we thought were very typical Dutch details and then made a show about that, and Dutch people love that.
Of course,
because Dutch people, when you sort of turn the mirror back on Dutch people, that they actually, there's no like ego about that. That's the other side of sort of the nuttig Dutch people, is they're kind of like, oh, okay, that's true. You got me on that.
Self-spots.
Self-spots, yeah. So when that's also a nice spot to be in, because certainly there's great Dutch comedians and certainly there's great American comedians that come to town and play Ziggo Dome. But there's not too many people that, but that's, it always starts with, wow, look at the bikes, okay. So again, for Dave Chappelle, look at the bikes is his first experience. But, for us, we have bikes and it's
we're done
fine.
with that.
We're done with that.
Yeah.
So we want to go a bit deeper into our experience of having a foot in both world, which is given, see as someone who, are Americans. Actually, I also feel European. I like that idea of, the connection to capital cities of Europe, the people who work in international companies and travel. So in addition to feeling like an Amsterdamer, I also feel European. But we have that ability to sort of be experts in different, to have a perspective that other people don't have.
Yeah, exactly. I was curious, how do you direct or write an improv show?
Yeah,
Because
how do you rehearse it even
how do you
too?
rehearse it? Yeah.
Well, so so once we come up with a theme, then we write some scenes about that theme, or we write improvisations, which is like, let's make a 90s song. Okay, that would be like an improvisation we might do. What is it? Okay, we explain here's some hits, here's what it's like. Okay, boy bands, girl bands. Well, what would be a good suggestion? Okay, and then we make something musical. So like improvise a 90s song, that would be something like we might do.
Yeah.
But you can't rehearse a show like you rehearse lines. You just have to rehearse what I would say the grammar of improvisation. So this yes and that Saskia was talking about, which is if we say, hey, if I say our son is not doing well in school, okay, I'm sort of suggesting we have a relationship, we have a child. She wouldn't go, who are you? That would make no sense. So instead she goes, oh, and I think he might be doing drugs. Oh, okay, so now that's why he's not doing well. Someone in the back line might go, oh, well, he needs a drug dealer. So then he might come into the scene and ask if, hey, is John here? Because I got something for him, and then, we all know what that is. So you can't rehearse the lines, but you rehearse the grammar of, if someone says something, how do you add to it? How do you yes and it? And how do you do something quickly? Sometimes it's like we need to get to the core of the scene quickly. What is the shiny object we talk about too? Like if we say 5 lines, there's one thing that we're going to jump on and move forward. So we all need to agree, like, what's the important detail in the scene? So that's kind of what you practice.
Yeah, and I think it's also a lot about trust, that when a person initiates a scene on stage, that you trust that is the right move, and that it's again very comparable to soccer. Like how do you practice soccer? You just need to know that when you shoot that way, that someone else is going to come and pick up the ball and move it forward. And so
you can plan plays, but it doesn't go. You need to plan spontaneity. You need to seize opportunity, and that's what we do too. That's a nice way to think about it.
Just one question about that non-profit organization, Interacting. You just said helping children with autism, with the onvoorspelbaarheid, unpredictability of the world. You have a son with autism. When did you realize that improvisation can help him? Because if I think of people on the spectrum, I think of they don't like change, and
they don't.
So how did you? When did you realize that was helping each other?
Well, like when you have a child with autism, then obviously you start to learn a lot from just experiencing with him. To us, flexibility is a muscle that you can train. So we never really settled for that we needed to create a sort of too structured environment for him, because we wanted to make him more flexible. And, like he has a fantastic memory. There's so much information stored in his brain, whether it's going to be useful or not, we don't know, but he has a micro focus on voice actors and micro focus on train schedules and trains and things like that. But of course, the world is unpredictable. And just like improvisation is without a script, there are strategies underlying what Andrew was talking about. The grammar of improv is exactly what you can learn and what we can teach to make them more comfortable. So when an unpredictable situation, an unexpected situation happens, they do not have to be stressed. They are confident that they can deal with that. And that's what we are using improv for. Besides that, also why we focus on teenagers is because they are a vulnerable group. When just you reach the age where you want to be connected to others, you discover that you're having a challenge to make connections with other people. So we want this also to be the place where they make friends and learn how to make friends. Yeah, it's fantastic to see. They have so much fun doing it. And yes, they become more confident. And one of the participants, he had a hard time doing an exam in school. There were too many things that were going not his way. And he has the tendency then to get very bothered by that. And then he told his mom, you know what? I just decided to improvise, and then he got that from interacting. He just managed to stay in the exam and finish it up just because he felt that he understood that what he needed was to deal with the unexpected and to embrace it.
Thank you so much for watching. Go check out the new Boom Chicago show Sitcom, which premieres next week, September 21st. And of course, check out this whole conversation on my YouTube channel or Spotify, iTunes, and all those other podcast apps. And if you're already on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button so you won't miss a single thing. We'll be back next week with a new guest en dan gewoon weer in het Nederlands. Doei!